She didn't acknowledge any of the failures under her administration, which was notable. She didn't mention any of the people that have been killed or raped by illegal immigrants. I think that's very notable. They want to wash away the fact that she was the border czar. Shame on the media for not looking at the facts and what's actually happening and forcing the honest conversation that the American people want. Yesterday, we were at the border in Arizona in Montezuma Pass, and we had some of the family members there of individuals in some of the cases that you've read a lot about in the news where someone has been raped and murdered by an illegal immigrant. The fact that Kamala Harris won't acknowledge these people and the fact that the press won't acknowledge these people is wrong. It is time to have a serious conversation about illegal immigration in this country and what it's doing to our country and how it's endangering people. And the fact that they're willing to cover it up, I mean, at some level, it's like, whose side are you on? Aren't we all Americans?
All right, guys, we have made it through the work week. We've also made it through the DNC. I'm finally unburdened by what has been burdening us, or whatever her phrase is. Oh, my God, what a speech. Oh, so devoid of fact, so mean, vicious. I mean, I hear about the joy. All these people are happy. That was mean. And by the way, it's interesting. No one talked about timing. This was no Beyonce, by the way. I don't know, which total side note. What's all that? Was that a trick to get people to tune in? There's a gap in the scheduling. Beyonce's been cited in Chicago. Maybe it's even Taylor Swift. I think they wanted to pump up ratings. Seriously, they didn't deny it. If you weren't going to have Beyonce, why didn't you pop that balloon right away? Because they wanted you to watch. Not to mention the fact that, is that what it tells you? Like the idea that you have to tune in because that's how desperate they are, I think, anyway. They literally didn't want you to watch Kamala because they thought the only thing that'll bring you in is maybe listening to Beyonce, which tells you what kind of voter they're targeting. You go to a Kamala rally because you want to see Megan Thee Stallion for free. You want to listen to the DNC because you want a free song by Beyonce. I mean, that's really what's happening here. They can't get you excited about her. And then they tell you, oh, look at all the excitement. The excitement was for Beyonce, not for her. Anyway, the speech... And look, you've heard my analysis. I call balls and strikes on this. I don't put a ton of stock into speeches. You can give a good one on a teleprompter. It's not that hard, especially for an experienced politician. I looked at last night and I was like, it was so devoid of reality. I'm going to be tough on the border, even though I support an open border. I'm tough on crime, even though I supported letting all these BLM guys. I mean, how dumb do they think we are? Anyway. Today on the show, James Blair is the political director for the Trump campaign. If you watch nothing else, this show is probably the most important one we've done so far. If you care about politics, you will not see this interview anywhere else. Anywhere. You might see a James Blair interview, and people ask about this poll or that poll. We are going to go through the path to 270. We are going to go through how they can win, how that ground game. This is the key thing, guys. We talk about all these battleground states, how close everything is. The ground game is what matters. Getting your people out to vote. How are they going to do that? The law has changed. How does it compare to the other side? I'm going to ask them all of those questions, and not in a 5-minute interview. We're going to talk, have a conversation. You will not see this interview with anywhere else on the internet. It's not going to happen. They don't do this. My background, my experience, and my connections are making this happen. Watch this interview. Share this interview. If you care about Donald Trump winning, if you care about understanding the election, this show is crucial for you to understand that. I'm going to ask all the questions, and a lot of them I've gotten from you guys through the comment section, through the things that you've sent me. Anyway, a lot of things have been unexpected recently, as you know, and that's why, whether it's politics or in life, you got to be ready. I'm ready, though, if some kind of natural disaster or something else hits, because I have a Patriot Power Generator 2000X in my house. If the electricity goes off, this is what you need in your house. I've had a generator in the past. I've told you this if you listen to the show, right? I've had one of those big gas power generators. Man, are they loud and they smell. of gas. But the problem is you actually have to hope that the gas station is open, that you're close enough, and that you time it, because it only lasts for so long, right? And then you got to get more gas and more gas and more gas. The Patriot Power Generator 2000X comes with solar panels that are free with it. That means you just have to have those panels out getting the sun, which you can get for free, and you don't have to worry about running to a gas station, hoping it's open, hoping that the electrical grid's not down, and then it'll take your credit card. It runs for hours on end and powers the most powerful things: your refrigerator, your tablet, your computer, medical devices, you name it. It's completely portable. This is exactly what you need in a time of crisis or an emergency. And because it's portable, if it's not you, it's a family member, it's a friend, it goes with you. I lift it up. I put it in my kitchen. I brought it around places. I put it in my car because I wanted to bring it out. Get the Patriot Power Generator 2000X now so that you don't regret it when an emergency happens. Go to 4patriots.com/Spicer. 4patriots.com/Spicer. All right. Listen, as I said, this is probably the most important interview that we have done so far. If you care about politics, there's a lot of cultural issues and things like that. The 7 states that are in play are critical, right? We've talked about it and how close they are. Michigan, in 2016, 10,703 votes. I have that number seared in my head. Think about how many people go to a Michigan football game. I went to a D3 school, so I don't have a ton of perspective on this, but I think it's 60, 70, 80,000 people at one game. 10,000 people made the difference there. 44,000 over 3 states in 2020. This get out the vote effort, making sure that people who are supposed to vote, vote, the people who have registered to vote for the first time, that they vote if they said that they're for Trump. How do you identify these folks? What data do you use? All of this stuff is critical to winning these close elections. It's like a field goal at the end of a game. That's going to make the difference here. And I'm just telling you, we've done the map to 270. I'm going to do it again in a couple weeks, maybe less, who knows. I'm looking at the right day to do that. But James Blair, the political director, is going to talk to us about how they're going to win and what you can do. If you're sitting at home, do you know how many times people walk up to me? I'm writing this in my newsletter today, by the way. SeanSpicer.com. Sign up for free. If you want to become a paid subscriber, even better. And that's the other thing. If you can help with the YouTube, make sure that you're hitting that notification button on that as well. But I digress. People ask me all the time, Sean, I want to help Donald Trump. What can I do? I'm going to ask James Blair that question so you don't have to listen to me anymore. How can you help? What if you don't live in a battleground state? How can you help? I'll ask him that too. But here's the thing, and this is kind of the point that I made in my newsletter. The most trusted source for political information is your family members, your coworkers, your friends, your relatives, etc. Those one-on-one conversations make all the difference in the world. That knock on the door, that phone call, that postcard, whatever. The mail, the ads, yes, they help. They're important. They're critical. But when they ask who's the most trusted source, so these conversations that we have backed by information, here's why Kamala Harris is a phony, a hypocrite, etc. That you have with your coworkers and your friends is the most important thing that we can be doing to help Donald Trump win and stop the Democrats. There's a lot to break down with James. So I want to bring in James Blair from the Trump campaign to talk to us about what's happening. Before I do that, one great supporter of the show who has been with me almost since the beginning is a guy named Leo Grillo from Delta Rescue. And if you go to deltarescue.org, you can see the amazing work he does. I'm a dog lover and a dog rescuer. If you're a dog lover, a cat lover, a horse lover, an animal lover, go to deltarescue.org and see what I'm talking about. It's a no-kill sanctuary for life. That means that they get them, they bring them there, and for life, they take care of them. For life. It's not a way station that they're trying to get rid of them. They give them the veterinary care, the nutritional support. Leo had this as a personal mission of his, but we can help him fulfill this mission and support him if you go to deltarescue.org and make a contribution. But more importantly, when you go to deltarescue.org, you're going to see that estate planning. Leo wants this to be an enduring mission. He doesn't want it to stop with him. So if you can help make Delta Rescue and the work that they do part of your estate planning, That's super helpful. Please just download it. Go to deltarescue.org. Think about it. Pray about it. If you're a dog or cat lover, maybe put part of your estate or your stocks to deltarescue.org. But hit that tab, download it, think about it, pray about it. I appreciate your consideration. All right, without further ado, James Blair, the political director of the Trump campaign. James, thanks for joining us. Tell me, like, what was your, you're a political pro. So let me just, give me your take. Do you think that the DNC helped them at all move the needle?
I don't think there was anything that stood out about it particularly, other than perhaps the fact that they have no plan to move the country forward. And she didn't acknowledge any of the failures under her administration, which was notable. She didn't mention any of the people that have been killed or raped by illegal immigrants. I think that's very notable. They want to wash away the fact that she was the border czar. She has no plan to bring America forward. I don't think there was anything really that stood out to me or to us at the DNC one way or another. Solid C performance. That's what I would give it. How
disappointed were you that Beyonce didn't show up?
I don't know if it was a ratings trick. I don't know what that was.
I kept thinking to myself, this is a ploy. I get it. I mean, they didn't do anything to tamp. And I know I was trying to have fun with you there, but I agree with you. It's like, this is a trick. But by the way, I was saying this to some folks last night. Like, if you're tuning in to watch Beyonce, doesn't that say a lot about where you are? I mean, as a campaign, that you're trying to, you want people to show up to watch Pink or Beyonce or James Taylor or whomever, but it's not because of you. And I that's the one thing about, like, even Trump rallies. He's the star. Like, you're going because of Trump, not to see, some musical act.
Absolutely. I mean, you've seen her doing that with her rallies already. It's kind of sad. I think she needs to associate herself as cool or interesting somehow. She's trying to be young and culturally relevant, but truthfully, I don't think that matters much to people. I think that people, particularly right now when things are hard for them, they want to know what your plan is to fix their problems. And I think she is completely failing on that effort so far. So,
all right, your wheelhouse is all things political, the ground game, et cetera. So that's where I really want to hammer down with you right now. Let's just start with this. You tweeted out, we have hundreds of paid staff across battleground states and currently hiring another wave of plus or minus 100, 300 Trump GOP offices across battleground states, 12,000 plus Trump Force 47 captains trained across battleground states, and will add over 2,000 per week between now and Election Day. Walk me through, let's just pretend that you're explaining to your neighbor right now what the ground game is and how you guys are addressing it. Take us from soup to nuts.
Sure. And this is a program, first of all, that we test drove throughout the primaries and in Iowa, particularly starting in Iowa with its very unique caucus structure where people group by precinct. But it's not anything entirely new. It's really a system that is built on how the party system is built on. There are precincts, and then there are counties, and they roll up to the state, which rolls up to the national party. And within every precinct, historically, you had someone that was in charge of the precincts, kind of the precinct model of organizing, right? And to a degree, that's still true. There's precinct men and committee women. But what we really did was we started recruiting people that could just focus on their little area. So instead of saying, come to this office, here's your target voters across the county, go knock their doors, make phone calls, all of that. What we wanted to do was recruit as many people as possible to just be in charge of a small group of voters that we need to turn out in their area, in their neighborhood, just in the area around them that is in the precinct. So that's really what a Trump Force 47 captain does. And a little update on that tweet, we're over 17,500 trained captains across the battleground states now. And what happens is when a captain gets recruited, they express an interest in becoming a captain, and then they join a training. And in the training, they are walked through, first of all, why the program is important and what their responsibility is, why it is strategically important for them to do what it is that they do. We want everyone bought into the program. Yep. And they learn how to talk to voters and all of these sorts of things. But ultimately, the end point of the training is they are assigned a target list of voters that we know we need to turn out to win these states. These voters are overwhelmingly low and mid propensity voters. They are overwhelmingly
Explain what that is. So just stop for a second. So the person listening right now, who is that person? Who is that person that you're targeting? Just so that we all understand the vernacular.
So what we would call a low and mid propensity voter in summary terms is someone who votes occasionally, but not always. They don't always get out to the polls. We know through, various big data modeling tools that we have that these are Trump voters. These are Trump supporters, but they are not reliable voters. They don't vote in every election. They vote occasionally. They definitely don't vote in primaries. They don't even vote in every general election. They vote occasionally. And then in there, you also have your newly registered voters. So these are younger folks maybe that are coming onto the rolls for the first time, or people that have just chosen to finally register now for whatever those reasons are through our efforts or otherwise. So these are people, the number one indicator of future voting performance, meaning whether or not you actually cast a ballot, is past voting performance. And there's others that go into that too, but largely people that vote all the time, and people that don't.
So let's just break this down for real. I live in Alexandria, Virginia. I think that Virginia is still a state. Should I be? I'm a 4-for-4 voter. I'm a high propensity voter, meaning I could go to sleep for 4 months, I'd wake up and I'd smell election day and I'd go out and do it. Are you targeting me?
Not on the ground. Those people are going to get
I'm sorry. I just want viewers to understand. So that means you're not going to waste resources on a guy like me because you know that I'm going to vote. Is that right?
100%. You're going to cast your ballot. You always do.
Okay. But if I'm a 2 of 4 voter, I vote occasionally. What should I expect? A knock on my door, somebody coming by?
Knock on your door, hopefully from the captain assigned to your area, hopefully multiple visits, potentially a handwritten postcard from one of your local captain's units, phone calls, and then obviously you get all of the paid communications as well. And the higher propensities will get some of the paid stuff too. These are things like mail reminding you, telling you where your precinct is, phone calls, text messages, and all of this. But the frequency of contacts through all of the mediums and the volume of contacts is geared towards those people that don't always turn out to vote.
And if I want to help if I say, okay, I live in Alexandria, Virginia, I want this to be a battleground state, I want to help, can I be a Trump captain?
Absolutely. You can go to TrumpForce47.com and just select the Become a Captain button or reach out to targeted voters in your area. And that will send your information to our unit there in Virginia. They'll reach out to you in 48 hours. Wow. And they will get you into a training. We've got tons of trainings every week. I mean, literally dozens per state go on, a mixture of virtual and in person. And they will bring you in, they will walk you through the process. And when you leave there, you know what your task is. And ultimately, you have your assigned list of voters. And then that team, that staff from both HQ and the local unit is going to be constantly pushing those captains to go out and make contact with their voters and then get information back from them. And I will say our most valuable target, which is not even just folks that are less likely to vote, but also people through various ways that we know this who are largely disconnected from politics and off the grid. They're not very reachable. So they're not even getting things like phone call programs and digital advertising very much and all of these other things. These are people that a door knock, a visit at their home is really the only way to get them. And we want to visit those people repeatedly, build a relationship with them, collect their contact information so we can continue to follow up with them and make sure that they get out to the polls.
What if I don't live in a battleground state? I'm from Rhode Island. I grew up in Rhode Island. That's not a battleground state. Sorry, Ocean Staters. Or I live in a very red state. I live in Wyoming or Montana. What can I do to help?
Yeah, we have programs for both of those folks too. When the state is not really in play, and you can still sign up at TrumpForce47.com. And then what we'll do is we'll reach out to and largely try to get you into a volunteer phone banking program or an online organizing program. The main thing those people can do is twofold. One, they can help us by actually recruiting captains within the battleground states. We can take them and help and use them to generate new captains recruitments on the phones and working through our leads that we're constantly getting in. And we also use them to just contact voters, again, focusing on low and mid propensity voters in the battleground states, helping them register for a mail ballot, asking them to pledge to vote in person early and sort of work down the process. Hopefully we can get them to cast their ballot before Election Day, but ultimately vote by Election Day. And those units down the stretch here will really focus on chasing ballots and giving an outsized amount of contacts to people with outstanding mail ballots in any given state or that we're trying to push to vote early. So that's the main way to help remotely. Also, if you want to travel for any period of time or for a weekend, we will soon raise up an effort that will be branded called our 72-hour strike force, which will be focused on bringing in volunteer deployments where people say, hey, I can't come here all the time, but I can come and book a hotel room for the last 72 hours before the election, work with you guys all through the weekend in the battleground states. We're going to mobilize thousands of people from across the country, from non-target states into the battleground states to help us with our final GOTV push throughout, the week and weekend preceding Election Day.
So if you're watching this right now or listening to the audio version, I will link what James is talking about, both in the show links, and then if you go to SeanSpicer.com, there's a tab that says other resources. I will put that in there. So if you're listening and saying, I can't, I'm driving or I can't get to it, I will put all these links that James is talking to at SeanSpicer.com and in the show links for today's episode so that you don't have to pull off or get into an accident. Stay safe. I'll do that for you. James, when I was at the RNC, the victory program, they called it, would oversee this. It was a coordination between the party and the campaign. For the first time this year, the law has changed, allowing the party and the campaign to coordinate with outside groups. So one, explain what has changed, and two, how you are taking advantage of that right now. And like, who are these groups that you may or may not be working with, and what impact is that having?
Yeah. Great question, Sean. So what we have set up, Trump Force 47 in our field program and all of that, is organized the way you traditionally mentioned within the RNC Trump coordinated victory program, coordinated with the state parties in all of the battleground states. But what changed back in March, and this was Mark Elias, the very prominent Democrat lawyer, his firm is the one that pushed for this advisory opinion from the Federal Election Commission. What they came out and said was that canvassing, meaning knocking at doors, is not an independent expenditure, which is, a very technical term. But basically, when super PACs run ads and super PACs drop mail and all of these sorts of things, they cannot coordinate or really be in contact with the campaign or federal party committee like the RNC or the state party committee about what they're actually doing, who they're targeting, what they're doing. None of that information is shareable. Just if you're on the candidate side, as we are, you just wait to see things happen in the public domain and you have a sense of what's going on out there. But the FEC specifically said that canvassing is not an independent expenditure. And in fact, candidate campaigns and federal party committees can coordinate on canvassing with outside groups run through super PACs or 501c4s or whatever.
So just again, for the viewer, so like, let's say I'm going to do this side of the road, you're going to do that side of the road. In the past, you couldn't have said that, right? You couldn't have told an outside group, you take the odds, I'll take the evens. Now you
Correct.
can.
Absolutely. Exactly right. And we couldn't do things like we couldn't share targets with them. We couldn't say, hey, our internal data says these are the most important people to focus on for this reason. Hey, we've got a gap in coverage in this geographic area. We could really use more manpower deployed out to this remote region, let's say, or we need to move more quickly in this urban area. We can say all that now. There's a legal framework to do it. And obviously, we got to work under the advice of counsel. But basically, all of these groups that have hired thousands and thousands of people to knock on doors and help get out the vote, we can help organize them within the macro ecosystem, make sure people aren't, we're not doing the same thing twice in the same area. People aren't just stepping on each other because their inability to talk to each other, helping us fill gaps and get mass coverage under folks that, our program is not as focused on, but we still want coverage on for various reasons. So it's a much more integrated effort. It allows for great resource efficiency and is a big force multiplier for us. I mean, we know from reports that are out there and what we hear, I'll say, we've got a couple thousand paid canvassers in the battleground states already. They are knocking on millions of doors. They will knock on 9 figures, or I guess I should say 8 figures worth of doors between the voting window and particularly post Labor Day and Election Day. So in addition to what we're doing, it's just a big value add. It's just a big opportunity to basically have all of the right-leaning and conservative organizations out there with lots of money and manpower be working, partially.
So can you share the data? If someone knocks on my door and says, hey, Spicer says he's voting early next Tuesday and we want to back that, does that data get back to you?
Yes, there's a legal framework to receive that data back. So now we can know what the outcome of that visit at the home was, what
give me an example of like what kind of the groups are you working with?
There's groups like Turning Point Action is one we're working with. America First Works is one we're working with. There's a number of smaller groups that are sponsored by groups like that. There's also a couple big super PACs that have gotten a lot of attention. I won't mention them because you can read about it. They prefer to stay out of the limelight. But there's also other groups that are doing things that we're working on finalizing agreements with. So some well-known groups, some less well-known groups, but ultimately all folks that have a lot of energy and a lot of desire to see the president get elected and a lot of money and manpower to put behind making that happen. So I will say that, the Democrats a lot of times try to say, well, outside groups is just not the same for whatever reason that is. And, it all comes down to training. If you've got a good, well-trained canvassing team to have good conversations at the door and collect the data well, then those are very fruitful efforts. So one of the reasons we immediately look to take advantage of this AO is not just to get additional manpower, but we knew all of this was going to happen anyway. So if we, with our training expertise, can step in and make sure the training is really good, make sure that there's very tight management of the actual voter contact activities. So there's not, things like fraud where people are sort of faking the numbers, that how many numbers they've knocked. I mean, for people in politics, that happens. Mm-hmm. So we've been able to basically lend the expertise and some of that oversight to make sure that doesn't happen. And the first goal was everything that's going to happen anyway, let's make it at least 50% better. That is just a benefit for us. Okay, now the new opportunities we have to raise up other groups and make sure that they have the manpower they need and all of that. Let's do that so we can get more coverage than we're going to provide ourselves. So
how does that compare to the left? Like, what are they doing the same thing, or is there? I mean, because they got all that Soros money. What are they doing in terms of?
It's hard to say. They haven't talked about it, but I mean, I'd put it this way: it was them that pushed for the AO, so right. That they pushed for the advisory opinion with their preeminent law firm. So one would assume that
worry you. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Here's what I would say. The Democrats always have more money than us, and certainly you'd prefer that's not the case. But this I will say, we are very well funded, and you can see you've seen the president's fundraising numbers. You've seen advertising up heavy duty in all of the battleground states. Yeah. I mean, we have the resources we need to win. It is true that they've got, more money than us, but they have not lapped us as they have in the past. And there's no risk of ads coming down before Election Day, as you've seen happen in the past at some time. So we feel pretty good about where we are. We always would like more money, but we also benefit from, again, those outside groups that have heavy resources. Those resources are now much more efficient in that they're working in concert with us on this very important piece of the program, as opposed to just doing things independently, specifically in the canvassing and GOTV space. So I wouldn't say the money worries me. Again, if you're a Republican campaign professional, you're used to getting outspent by the Democrats because it costs a lot of money to lie and gaslight. We have the resources we need, but I would not dissuade anyone from giving us more. We can always use more.
Smart answer. That's the right answer. Hey, let me ask you this. I'm going to get into the states real quick, but I want to just ask you this. You're the guy that on election night, President Trump is going to look at you and say, James, are we going to win? What would be the answer right now?
We would win if the election were held today.
And how many?
It would be narrow.
You'd be narrow. So how confident do you feel in the path to 270? I can get you to 270, or do you say, hey, Mr. President, right now I see us at 286 or 290? Like where? Yeah. And I get it's a snapshot, right? So I'm not holding you to this right now. Things will come into play. We could go one way or the other. If in your mind, and I see it on Twitter, if you follow James Blair, you'll see you respond to a lot of folks. But where do you see the map right now today?
Right now, we're north of 270. Okay. You know, here's what I would say, and we'll go by the public polling. Averages. Averages are typically the thing to look at. You know, the RCP average, I'll say historically, has been a pretty good indicator, other than it typically underrepresents President Trump's support. President Trump has consistently held the lead in Pennsylvania. He's held the lead in Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada. Wisconsin and Michigan have bounced around a little bit more and close to the waterline. But that map, you know, if that were the case, let's say you pick up all those states, but you don't pick up Michigan and Wisconsin, you get well over 270.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina is 270 exactly.
Exactly.
If you didn't win Georgia, but you won Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, that is more than 270. So there's a lot of paths. The Democrats really only have one at this time. They're very focused on the blue wall plus Nebraska too, which gets them to exactly 270. That's Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, plus the Nebraska 2nd Congressional District. We have a lot more paths than them. There are other states that, you know, lean on the edge of being seriously in play. They were a little bit more in play under Joe Biden. So you see a doubling down on the 7 states, but there's also a possibility that could open back up. And I'll say this. If you look just this week, there's already evidence that her halo is starting to fade a little bit. She went through the Democratic convention, and we'll see. She'll probably get a light post-convention bump, but the averages have been tilting back in our favor all week. There's been starting to be more polls now, even though they are gaming the polls within the averages, broadly speaking. It's starting to move back in the president's direction. So, and I think you'll see potentially news today that will really shake up.
Okay, well, I'll get to that in a second. Let me ask you this. Of the 7 states, what would you say is the 1, 2, and 3, or however many you want to do, where you say we feel the most confident about these 1 or 2 states coming to Trump?
I don't like to rank order our level of public confidence.
All right, well, can I do this to you? Mark Halperin and I do this thing called the morning meeting every morning with Tim Hogan. All right, and he posted this morning and had us react. So I'll have you react. This is what he said. He said Harris edge Wisconsin and Michigan. Let's start with that. Do you agree with that?
At this moment, it is right in a toss-up. Yes.
Okay. He says Trump edge Nevada.
Yes.
Okay. Here's the interesting thing. I based on the public polling, Nevada's going Trump. Every time I talk to somebody out there, and I know you're actually in Nevada right now, people say to me, Sean, be careful. Nevada's loosey with the football. The unions come home, Clark County, the culinary workers and they kill us every time on election day. And so I've never seen, and I think President Trump's no tax on tips has been brilliant, right? And why should I was ready to go all in on Nevada with Trump. Why should I pump the brakes and just be happy, or should I be a little nervous?
Look, I mean, I do understand that historical perspective, so you can never discredit history. I'm not here to make bets on anything because there's a lot of game to be played. But here's what I'd say in Nevada. You mentioned no tax on tips. The president's doing an event on that in just a few hours that I'll be going to him with. That has spread like wildfire out here. I mean, talk to the bartenders and the valets and all of this. They know about it. They also know 2 other things. They know that Kamala Harris copied his proposal. And that includes down in the culinary union membership very clearly. The culinary union, as is the case with, frankly, many unions, is the leadership is not in step with the rank and file. And I think you see a lot of that here. But two, they also know that Kamala Harris, literally last night, I had a bartender talk to me about this, and he told me, you guys need to go pull the clips from Fox News and advertise on them because we all picketed the IRS building when they put in the new rule to collect more tips from us. They know that they did that.
But this is the thing, James. I mean, I'm not for fracking. I am for fracking. I'm again, I got you. IRS people coming after you on tips. I'm not for taxing tips. I have never seen in 30 years of campaign work somebody get away with every time Corinne Jean-Pierre does a press conference, I go, I wish I could have done that. And then I look at Kamala Harris' campaign. I go, I wish I could have run a campaign that I could get away with this crap. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. I mean, honestly, I guess I expect the Democrats to lie, but shame on the media.
Oh my God.
In a big way. Shame on the media for what they're doing.
No wonder you were at a bar. I can't imagine. This is disgusting. The media that is such a whiny bunch of brats about access and transparency in the First Amendment have not done their job. This is, she gets away with so much ridiculousness, the duplicity, the hypocrisy, the flip-flops, the phoniness. And yet, just even the stupid stuff, the going into Wawa twice and forgetting that they sued Wawa, or I'm sorry, it was Sheetz. And yet they want to pretend that they're like random consumer walking and getting a bag of Doritos. They lie every day. They copy again, I get wound up when I talk about this. I can't imagine how frustrating it is for you guys.
For good reason. It's very frustrating. And, I'll make two comments. One, 20 years ago, or maybe even 10 years ago, Kamala Harris's flip-flops and her dishonesty would have been a campaign ending lie. Nobody would have gotten away with this.
Joe Biden got, remember, he got skewered his first time he ran for president for plagiarizing the dude from Britain. And now she plagiarizes the guy from America.
Right. He had to drop out of the presidential race over. It never would have flown. And then the second thing is, shame on the media for not looking at the facts and what's actually happening and forcing the honest conversation that the American people want. Yesterday, we were at the border in Arizona and Montezuma Pass, and we had some of the family members there of individuals in some of the cases that you've read a lot about in the news where someone has been raped and murdered by an illegal immigrant. And I tweeted about that this morning. You should go look at it. The fact that Kamala Harris won't acknowledge these people and the fact that the press won't acknowledge these people is wrong. It is time to have a serious conversation about illegal immigration in this country and what it's doing to our country and how it's endangering people. And the fact that they're willing to cover it up. At some level, it's like, whose side are you on? Aren't we all Americans?
It's disgusting. Honestly, the idea that they run these ads talking about being tough on the border. I want to respect your time. I want to run through the rest of these states real quick. This is what Halpern said. He said, tied, but mostly moving back to Trump, absent a Harris sweep, Georgia. You agree with that?
Yeah.
All right. I think the Brian Kemp thing was brilliant. Credit to President Trump. Look, you can say if you have a grievance with Brian Kemp, focus on it after November 5th. But Kemp is popular. He's on board with Trump. I think Georgia's coming home. Good. He says this, tied and likely to stay that way for at least now, Pennsylvania and Arizona. Do you agree with that?
I don't think Arizona is tied. I would put that a little more in our column.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
And frankly, I wouldn't even call Pennsylvania tied, but it is a toss-up. This is a close race. It's all polling, but we have consistently held above in Pennsylvania for many months, including with Kamala Harris in the race. But Pennsylvania's ground zero. That is sort of the tip of the spear of the war.
All right. And then the last two things, North Carolina, I think that's a Trump state. Where do you come down on that?
Yeah, it looks very good for us. It's strong. Again, North Carolina has growth trends. People, talked about the difference between 16 and 20. That's largely growth trends. When you see some of these high growth urban areas where people are moving on, where they, have a little bit more of a bluer sentiment, you see some bluing of the state. That's true in North Carolina. But overall, solidly in our column, we feel good about it. But we're obviously campaigning hard and not taking it for granted. All
right. What about the twos? Nebraska 2 and Maine 2.
Nebraska 2 is probably tilt their way, waterline to tilt their way, which obviously it went that way in 2020's reported result, and the opposite in Maine 2, that is tilt fairly strongly our way.
Are you worried? I've played with the map enough times. I can get Trump well over 300 electoral votes, and I can get Trump tying at 269, 269, depending on those two. Are you guys paying? I mean, how much do you spend thinking about Nebraska 2 and Maine 2?
A lot. We have full operations in Maine 2 and Nebraska 2. We just don't talk about them much, but we've got full ground operations and communications efforts there.
All right. I have so much more I want to get to with you but I know your time is precious. The last thing I want to ask you about, I was telling everybody all week that you were on, and I was like, this is a big deal because we'll want to talk about the ground game and how important it is and where the states are from your perspective. But it was funny. One question came up from a bunch of people about a tweet that you sent. I'll read it to you. It says, a lot of rumors out there about Kamala having a serious drinking problem apparently coming into focus as campaign heats up. Stay tuned. What do we need to be aware of? How concerned should we be? What do you guys know? And how are you preparing to deal with this?
I probably won't break news here, and I probably won't offer a lot of comment, but I would say, look online. There is a lot of chatter out there. There are a lot of, I've heard these rumors and there's talk about it. So I simply put out there that this is something that there seems to be an uptick in. So we'll see what happens.
But is it, do you guys, the people who have shared that concern with me and said, hey, James tweeted this out. They say that we've seen stuff on TikTok, we've seen stuff on social media. Is there any testimonial evidence that you're aware of where somebody credible is saying, I've watched her, in briefings or in the morning, or she needs to, is there anything from someone of significance making an allegation that you're aware of?
I have heard from some sources who say they are witnesses to this. Yes.
Okay. All right. James, like I said, I left a lot on the table here. I mean, because there's so much to get to. I know how valuable your time is. I hope you'll come back in the next 70 plus days to make sure that you fill us in so that the folks watching can help President Trump be victorious on November 5th. And I want a decisive win so that we don't have any of this funny stuff going on like we did last time after November 5th. I want a big, decisive win. I want a 300 plus electoral vote win. If so. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being so generous, and I look forward to having you back.
No problem. Look forward to it. Thanks, Sean.
All right, guys. So much to break down on that conversation with James Blair. Our marching orders are clear, right? I told you at the beginning that I would talk about how you can help because you are important. The ads are great, as I said. But when you send out a message or an email or knock on the door or talk to people, that's critical. We need to go out and persuade people and explain the case because these last few people in these battleground states, I don't know where they've been living, like under a rock, but they need to know why it matters. And we need to expose it because if you watched at all any of the DNC, they're presenting this woman who I've never seen before. Who is this woman that suddenly cares about immigration? Who cares about jobs, who needs a day one that was in office for 3.5 years. It's insane. And you've got a corrupt leftist media covering up. No accountability. I think it's horrible. It's ridiculous. But it is what it is. But we can overcome that just like we did in 2016. People are smart. They get it. And I think so many times I'll have a conversation with someone and they'll say, well, that's not what I read in the Washington Post or the New York Times, or I saw this clip on CNN. I, honest to God, had people texting me during Kamala's speech saying, is that really true that Trump wants to do that? That there's this secret list and da-da-da-da. I mean, they're lying. For all the talk about misinformation, what they're sending out, what they're telling you is all a lie. This Project 2025 stuff and Trump, I mean, he has denounced it personally. And as I said, I mean, there's some good stuff in there. But it's not his. He has an agenda. He put it on his website. He has a platform the party put out. You want to attack that? Go for it. There's a reason they're not attacking that. Because the American people agree with it. I mean, this is crazy. We have to know. So us having those one-on-one conversations and explaining to people, we can't get mad at them. For people who are, I mean, if you didn't get exposed to a lot of what we do, what we talk about, you might think that too. It's a brainwashing exercise with CNN and the Washington Post. and Politico and all these guys do. Politico literally has a reporter who writes their morning playbook that's basically an embed to the Harris campaign. He's a spokesman. And I get, so if you had that, and that's what you read every day, and you didn't read anything else, you'd probably believe some of this BS too. That's why it's important that we do shows like this and support what's happening and bring you people like James Blair, the political director, to actually tell you what's happening. So this is, as I said at the beginning, probably one of the most important shows, because you need to know how the system works. You need to know what they're doing and what you can be doing to help us win in November. I do not want to wake up on November 6th and have another conversation about what states are in play, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I want a decisive 300-plus electoral college win. And we can do that. If we win enough states, and none of them are out of reach, we can all win. There's your marching orders. All right. Tomorrow on the show, today's Friday. Next week on the show, Monday, Scott Jennings. You've seen him on CNN. He is the guy. The clips are going viral. The Trump campaign is retweeting him like every day. He's going to join us to give us his perspective on the media and what's happening. An unbelievable, powerful voice for reason and for the right. Scott Jennings will join us. Have a great weekend. Continue to hit that subscribe and notification button. Please share this show as we go through the weekend. Send it to 5 friends and say, this is what's really happening. Watch it. That's so helpful to us, but it's so helpful to winning the campaign. YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts, send it, share it, subscribe. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here on Monday. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.